mascots. This is Trelane Brewer and Steve Lowe, who will be presenting the information today. We attended the June 4th community meeting that was hosted by the developer of Crossroads, and I think at this point we all know how that turned out. So that Saturday after that meeting, my husband and I went and attended a community meeting being hosted by Protect Stafford, which is a community organization that is fighting back against the data centers in Stafford. And we walked out of that meeting and we're like, we need that here. We need something going on here. So after that meeting, my husband and I, we were like, we have to do something. So I went home, I created the Facebook group, Safeguard Spotsy, and an amazing group of neighbors stepped up immediately and said, what can I do to help? So that's how we got here today. So today we're going to present you with information that we have spent the past 4 weeks gathering. We have met with Board of Supervisor members, the Planning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've spoken to leaders of other grassroots organizations in the surrounding counties, finding out what they're doing, what should we be doing. We have done a couple of stories in the media, and we have been doing research. So with that said, we are presenting you with the most current information that we have, but please keep in mind that this process is fluid, it's dynamic, the proposals are gonna change, and as that happens, we're gonna do our absolute best to keep you all up to date and informed on our website. That's gonna be the best way to get that information. And if you give us your email, we will attempt to send out updates and when there are actions needed, like attending board meetings or attending the planning commission meetings. So something also to keep in mind as we get started, Virginia has currently 663 operating data centers and another 595 under construction or pending. So we by far have the most data centers in the country. So let's get started. So we're going to cover about Safeguard Spotsy, facts about data centers here in our county, and what you can do, and then we'll have some time for questions. So Safeguard Spotsy is a grassroots coalition of neighbors advocating for limiting the number of data centers in Spotsylvania County and for responsible, safe, and sustainable builds for the 8 that have already been approved. We already know we're having 8. Sorry. We believe that if we're going to have data centers, Spotsylvania should be the leader in standards for safe, responsible, future data center builds that utilize the most up-to-date technology and safety equipment that guarantees the protection of our residents and our environment. Facts about data centers, Trelane is going to.
All right, so sometimes it's not entirely clear what a data center actually is. So we're going to talk about what they are, and then we'll get some concerns about data centers, and we will present that second portion. The Energy Independent Security Act 2000 defines data centers as the facilities that contain electronic equipment and process electronic or digital information. That's not that useful. What data centers are, they are the cloud. Anytime you make a Facebook post a picture of your cat, download something from the internet, a data center is involved. The information goes to the data center and comes from data centers. They're not new. We've had data centers for 40 plus years. The biggest difference between 40 years ago and today is size. Data centers being built here in Spotsy County are known as hyperscale data centers. Hyperscale data center is any data center with square footage of 10,000 square feet and at least 5,000 servers. What they're building here is much, much bigger. Most of these campuses have multiple buildings. Each building is the size of a city block, and the buildings are between 30 and 100 feet tall. They house tens of thousands of servers. The ones that they've scheduled for Crossroads is 8 buildings. There's 8 buildings. Each building is over 100,000 square feet. That's 50 or 60 houses if you put them all together. And they'll probably host at least 500,000 servers. These things are massive. And that's the biggest thing we gotta take away from this is these are not small, they're big, and it's not just AI, it's everything you do on the internet. And please we'll talk about some of the reasons we're concerned.
Quick introduction, Steve Love, retired Army Corps of Engineers Colonel, DoD civilian, consultant, and now we're chasing data centers. There's going to be a lot of stuff here. We're going to talk about noise, air pollution, water, power and electricity, and some other concerns. If you have questions, your option. You want to wait till later or ask a question as we're going through, that's fine, up to you. So like I said, we're going to cover these topics. First thing I want to talk about is noise. You want to press the button? We have a recording of about 65 decibels in the immediate vicinity of a data center. Work in progress.
Press the power button. Press the power button.
Sorry for the pause, but it's critical to get a feel for this.
Can I ask a question while she's
Yes.
figuring that out?
Certainly.
You have referenced the Crossroads Data Center, is that the one that's closest to us by the train track, that one?
Yes.
Okay.
That said, and a little later there will be a map.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, that's a tiny version of the map that's in there, and also there was the handout and the map that's over here.
But Crossroads is the one that's.
Crossroads Technology Center is the one that's being built on the immediate east end of the Lee Hill Golf Course, Lee Hill Community. So that's what 65 decibels sounds like. So for the noise, obvious, and I'll come back and answer your question a little bit more. There's a significant amount of noise. That is a concern. You don't want to hear that all day, every day. If there are generators powering a data center 24 hours a day, that's what you'll hear if the code requirement is 65 decibels. We live in a treed neighborhood. There are a lot of people who say, oh, by the way, the trees will baffle it. Well, not really. There are two types of noise. One is what you hear. That's a high frequency, the dBA. That's what you can hear when you're sitting on your front porch. In the morning, I sit on my front porch, and I-95 registers as 55 decibels. The county has in its code 65 decibels. But if you look at this, what ends up happening is you have, I'll just say the math for a moment, but that's not meaning it into the calculations. 50 decibels sounds twice as loud as 40 decibels. 60, twice as loud as 50. 70, twice as loud as 60. So if, yes?
Has anybody done a study on how that noise affects our pets?
I think there are studies. I don't have one in hand. There have been a lot of studies, just noise generically, and yes, for data centers themselves. The problem with this is, we have the Lee Hill site, Crossroads. Right across the street, across 17 from us, there are 3 data centers. There's one humongous construction project ongoing, but there are actually 3 different data centers going on. On the south side of Massaponax Church Road, there's another huge facility going on. Proposed, not approved. 3.5 miles down the road, Belvedere Plantation, there's a proposal for the largest of all of these. And the initial idea that's coming out of that is gas turbine generators to power it. Noise, air pollution. Compounding. Interesting fun. Yes, sir.
That was nice. Do you know how far that carries? I mean, I can hear I-95 some mornings too, where I am. I can hear train whistles.
Yes.
Sometimes when they're going. How fast does that dissipate, that noise? Do you know?
It's in terms of thousands of feet.
Thousands.
The only reason I'll say that, and I can't give you a really good technical answer, but what I've read, what you can hear a quarter mile away, a mile away, it dissipates by about 10%, 15%.
That's all?
2 miles away, it might be 40 to 60%. Because the sound, the high frequency sound is going out like this. So it goes up in the air. Some of what we hear from the highway is the sound bouncing off the clouds, coming back down. Low frequency is a different animal. Low frequency vibrates through the ground. If you can think of putting your best, heaviest bass speaker face down on your floor and cranking it up, your whole house vibrates. So the ground vibrations in this case will come through, and the vegetation won't stop it necessarily, but another piece is what happens in wintertime. The vegetation isn't there. So there's not the sound buffer, and it'll travel even further. One other piece very quickly is, I think Trelane said there may be hundreds of generators on one site. Yes. How many hundreds is a question. Whether it's 150, 250, 350, depends on the size of each one of those buildings and what they house. If I am one generator cranking 65 decibels, you can hear 65 decibels, and that's the county standard today. If I have 250 generators, each cranking 65 decibels, I'm sitting in my house and I will hear 85 to 90 decibels. That's a heck of a noise factor. So each one of these things, we're going to talk about some of the problems, and we're going to talk about what recommendations we are kind of trying to propose to the county, to the Board of Supervisors, to the Planning Commission, saying, hey, we don't want 85 decibels coming to our house. So we're saying 50 or less for the entire site, not just per generator, but a site-specific noise limit that says if you're putting in 300 generators, the total can't exceed. And I tripped into coining a term, where we are sitting right now. Crossroads, the Hunters Ridge, Massaponax, Belvedere, we're sitting right in the center of this. So we get, within the circle of where we live, all of them broadcasting to us at the same time. So we're saying, hey, the county needs to do a comprehensive noise study. Not just, okay, a site does a study, but how does the sound aggregate from all of these in the same vicinity? The county is the only one that can do that work. The individual developers are not going to do it. So we are pushing when we meet, hey, how about a percentage? If you're cranking 50 decibels, and that's where the limit is, and that's what the sound is before you start, only 102% of what that is when you're done. So if it's 50, if the ambient sound is 50 today, When you're done, it can't be more than 52. They've got to address that from standards.
And in addition to
Sure.
that, I don't know if anyone's paid attention to the news, but the DOE recently authorized large data centers to use those generators 24 hours a day so that residents during the heat wave can run their ACs. So it's not just going to be whenever the power's out, and it's also kind of aligns with how close we're to the nice edge of the power grid that we're on. But you'll have this noise potentially
Right.
around the front.
And let me add to that. The week before the 4th of July, when everything was 100 degrees, the entire energy grid had their fingers on the button to say, shut down the data centers because of their power grid. Shutting them down means they can turn on their generators, their backup generators. So pulling from the grid, and this comes back to the power idea in just a couple minutes. We're looking at brownouts starting in 2027 because the grid will not be able to handle this growth. Yes, sir.
So, understanding the generation of the generator noise production, what's the decibel reading on just the computer, the computing, just normal if they're just off the grid power?
The sound that we heard
Yeah,
is standing outside a data center.
that's the standard.
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet away, that's the sound that's coming from the data center, not necessarily with any generators on.
Right.
The whole building hums.
So, how do we get to the 50 decibel?
It's got to be,
What's going to reduce that? DVCs go through everything.
right.
There's nothing that stops those that I understand. DVAs, you know.
I'll give a partially technical answer. Shielding, baffling, putting the generators inside a box. The inside of the box is configured with foam, acoustical tiles, all kinds of things. The boxes can then be enclosed. I mean, one of the generator boxes might be a Connex this big. So, huge amounts, but all kinds, baffling on the exhaust, baffling inside the generator housing units. Truly?
Yeah, so I think you're specifically addressing the noise the servers themselves make, and that is a real concern. From a safety standpoint, I think there's OSHA regulations on how loud it can be within the building itself, which I think is 80, I think is the maximum for that air protection. But from a, how do we control that noise from getting outside, it basically falls in the same purview as the generator. Basically, the county has to say that these are the limits of the noise, regardless of what's actually making it.
Right. It has to be a comprehensive all-source sound from that site. And I spoke with one of the, I'll grab you in just a second, sir. I spoke with one of the Board of Supervisors members up in Loudon, and he said, if you do it right, sound can be fixed. But the county and any jurisdiction has to have the chutzpah to be able to put that criteria in place to enable that standard to be met. It can't just be, well, we'll talk about it later and figure it out. Sir?
My concern is the residents, the harmonics through the valley, and the sound propagation. Has any thought been done? Because where we live, which is near the golf course on Lynch Hill, and I know it's a different frequency, but the CSX, VRE, and Amtrak horns just propagate up through the valley. And so if there is a resident,
That's gotta be the thing.
But it's not just really there at the site, it needs to be miles away. Because just like with
Yes.
95 and the sound barrier, okay, that can bounce off hills, it can bounce off.
Right.
And it just ricochet, comes up right up through the valley that's there,
Yes.
right under the golf course. And so they don't do it right.
And heaven, forgive forgive my sense of humor, heaven forbid if the noise is loud enough that somebody has to increase their handicap. Sorry. But that's the point of the comprehensive noise study. It has to be done, it has to address everything that's in there, in that area. The door factory, I don't know their name. Fortress Door Factory. Everything that's in the vicinity needs to come into play, because if you're sitting here in this sound vortex, we're getting hit from everything from all sides. So,
the best defense against the noise pollution ultimately, and I know it sounds redundant, is less sensors. Okay, while we do need to, do as many safeguards as we possibly can, the less sensors, the better. I mean, we talked about it a whole bunch about this sound vortex. That, by the way, I'm sure he's going to bring this up. Leeds Hill, the Catholic Church, that's all dead center. Less of these means less noise. So the more of these projects that we can stop or put a halt on or slow down, the less noise. So for all the safeguards, at the end of the day, less sensors.
So those four that you have repeatedly talked about are a done deal, they're going in no matter what?
No. The three that are across us from 17 are under construction.
But the Crossroads one.
Crossroads will get, it is not approved, and this comes up in some of the approval process dialogue in a little bit. The county had and I'll steal your thunder for a second, but I think it answers the question. The county had a by right rule for land use. So if I buy 100 acres and it's zoned I2, industrial grade 2, whatever industrial 2 is, I can do it. I can build it. County's like a little bit hamstrung, and within the code, they're allowed to build it. Yes, there are other code requirements. They can't have broken glass all over the ground, but they can build it. They have changed the rules for data centers as of February of 2026. All data centers starting their approval process after or partway through their approval process starting in February of 26 have to go through a special use permit process. Hold that thought. That's going to be part of what Cindy talks about later. Air pollution. Same thing. The more generators you have, the more smoke is pumped out. And the same kind of issues are here. Health issues, noise for pets, air pollution for pets. Same kind of considerations. So what do you need to do to, is that the same thing you just mentioned? Sorry about that. There is a health risk, a serious health risk. If I already have asthma, I would really not be looking forward to this being a quarter mile away. Again, not only what is that site generating, but what's the aggregate in the area. The county's got to do more work on this. So, part of the thing is, if you approve a special use package for constructing something, it should not stop on the day of approval. The point is, when you build it, during the construction process, if I'm going to get to the point of picking generators in 3 years, the standards 3 years from now have to apply to what you put in. Not the standards from today, oh, I got approved 3 years ago. So this is a living document. The other part of it is all kinds of filters. I don't think there's ever going to be a way to clean everything up. But you can get close. Best available control technologies. There are rules that say when you install, the best thing that's available today is what you have to use. not when it was approved. So these are the things that we are pushing in our dialogues with the county to make sure they get punched in. Water. Bunch of facets of water. The Crossroads site itself is projected to use 1 million gallons of water a day. That said, the county has a rule today that all data centers use non-potable water that is coming out of the wastewater treatment plants. So whatever we do every day and they pull water out of the reservoirs, it goes through the pipes and to the treatment facility. That effluent coming out of the treatment facility will be the source of water if the data center is using a water-cooled system, a water cooling system. So, must be a closed system. It doesn't get pumped there and goes back on the ground when they're done. It has to be cleaned, filtered. It goes back to the wastewater treatment center, and then it goes through its final treatment and back wherever that particular treatment facility disposes of its water or puts it back into the environment. So, one of the concerns is county's going to be out of water after the first 8 that have already been approved are in play. So what do we do about the other 10? There has to be a different solution. We get word from the state of Virginia that says, hey, we're in the middle of a drought. Stop using so much water. Okay, is a data center going to shut down? Probably not. So, don't use air, don't use water for the cooling systems. The rules have got to change. There are all kinds of different technologies. A couple of examples. Amazon is developing a chip that actually has fluid lines built into the chip. If you think about the tip of your finger, and you start with your heart, and it goes through an artery and then gets smaller and smaller and smaller into the capillaries, Amazon has developed a chip that the liquid cooling flows through the chip. There are other methods, cold plates that sit on top of the chips. There's all kinds of alternatives, non-water. If we're going to run out of water, the county needs to specify that you don't use water-free cooling. And whatever the fluid is, there have got to be incredibly tighter constraints on what comes back out. What if lightning strikes and a pipe busts? Where does it go from that facility? Does it go down Lee's Hill, down into Massaponax Creek? It's a wetlands. So all those things have to come into play. Light. This may be a little bit surprising. Inside the buildings, okay, don't really care. If the church wanted to have 1,000-watt bulbs, fine, keep the blinds in. Outside, at these hyperscale. I'll trip over that word a couple of times. Hyperscale facilities, there is a requirement for a lot of light for security purposes. Cameras, yes, there's a fear that somebody's going to break in and do something to that data center. We don't want to lose the $1 billion investment in a data center. Okay? All-night lighting, operations and security. Must be hitting the wrong button. So, dark sky. There is a criteria out there for dark sky. You have to change the way the light fixtures are built so they don't shine up. So, You won't see the Fredericksburg glow at night from a data center if you apply these criteria. Illumination levels. Photometric studies. I actually wrote that one, so I shouldn't have tripped over it. But apply the best codes. If there's a fence around the facility, make sure that if the lights are shining on the roads and the pathways internal to the facility, it's blocked. Again, nice trees, buffers, wintertime, they're not there. We don't want to have that 500-watt bulb shining in our bedroom window because it's the middle of winter and the trees aren't there. Power and energy, one of the biggest ones. Bottom line is this: it's likely our energy bills are going to go up. How much? Okay. There are plans that are in the works for significant changes in the power grid. But we're not at a level that we can fight this effectively, even within Spotsylvania County. There has to be an effort statewide. Now, Fredericksburg is here on this map, so you get a point of reference. This is out in the vicinity of the Shenandoah Valley. These towers are going to be 150 feet tall. Brand new power lines, not through existing easements, and they're going to grind up the ground, clear everything for their easement. In Loudoun County, it's not this, that's up here. Residents up there and in Prince William, one of their biggest problems was the easement was approved for a high transmission line. Think of a high transmission line as what goes right through the middle of Lee's Hill. That's it. These proposals are bigger and wider than what's there. I'll ask the good lady in the back, how would you feel if your backyard disappeared because they took out your trees to increase the easement? Okay. That wasn't planned, but it worked out well. But historic facility, or historic plots of land, green, wetlands, all kinds of implications. There's another one. If you've heard of the Kraken, this one starts near Quantico, wraps around the east side of Fredericksburg, and goes down to North Anna. Again, some of this is in existing rights-of-way that they already have. Some of it's brand new. This is double the power transmission of what's hanging over us here in Lee's Hill. Significantly larger, wider, more land, and it does come through Fredericksburg. But if you think about it, from this point on the map to here, that's kind of where the power line goes that runs through Lee's Hill. So we're going to get another one 3 miles away. That's a national issue. Yes, sir?
Yeah, does the builder of this proposed project say where they're going to plan to get the power? Are they going to do gas turbines? Are they intending to tap somehow into the high voltage line that exists? Where's the power coming from?
It will, well,
They haven't been real clear about that. But we'll talk
They're
about
not
it.
clear about a lot of stuff, yeah.
well, it's very early in the process, but when we get a chance to look at the map a little bit more, you'll notice that this power line, the transmission line, all these facilities are being nested right along that power line. And the proposal is you'll get to a point, they drop to a transfer station, substation, and run more lines to your site. Then they drop another one and run lines to the next site. Then they drop another one and run lines to the next site. There are supposed to be 3 paths in Crossroads. We'll get a little bit more into that. But yeah, that's gonna come. This one is probably the scariest of all of these. Next era is the largest natural gas provider in the country. There is a pending merger with Dominion Energy. It would end up being the largest utility company in the country. Guess what they want to do? Not depend necessarily on electric, but let's use gas turbine generators with electricity as a backup. So all the generators, all the noise, all the pollution running 24 hours a day as their primary power source, and we live with the consequences. These are the kind of things that we're facing. So largest gas plant in the country out in Cumberland, Maryland. And we talked about this and discovered that our families back in time all went to Deep Creek Lake. Guess what? Have the largest gas plant in the country adjacent to Deep Creek Lake. Not fun. So, there is a high voltage direct current construct out there. You drop a line off a transmission tower. You have a substation that converts the electricity to direct current. That direct current cabling can be buried, and it comes up out of the ground where you need it. So, would we rather have, stupid question, would we rather have more overhead or more easements that they bury stuff? But they could be buried in the existing easement, but they still have to get to the data centers. These are the things that require that the county, every other county that's impacted in Virginia, get with the state legislature, get with the state corporation commission, and start demanding more answers to the way this stuff is percolating. If not, big industry is going to drive this solution, and we live with the results. Are you next? Cindy's going to talk with some specifics about data centers that we're facing. I'll just do the one preview. We are sitting right here. So everything we've been talking about, the 3 sites across the street, the huge Massaponics, this is Crossroads, that's Belvedere. That's our vortex of sound, noise, air.
So why are the data centers coming to Spotsy County? Virginia requires every county to develop a comprehensive plan, and part of that plan is what business the county wants to attract to it. In 2021, and this actually goes back a little bit further, but the most recent one was 2021, the comprehensive plan identified 3 areas: tourism, which we got with the Kalahari Water Park; healthcare, which we got with the VA Medical Center; and then technology. Data centers was on the list. They wanted data centers to come. Why? Because the county has large parcels of land that are zoned for industrial use and have been for long term. The I-95 corridor has unused fiber and internet cables that are easy to access. And Spotsylvania County's tax rate for technology companies is $1.25. You've got Loudoun County and a bunch of the other counties that are, or Prince William, I think, are at $4.15, right? And we're at $1.25. Stafford is at $1.25. Unfortunately, we're kind of in this group with the, I think it's the George Washington Regional Commission, and they kind of set that, and we're in this group, so we're trying to work with the county to figure out how we can change our tax rate. Currently, we have 8 approved data centers. They will be coming. We can't stop those at this point, so that's why we're also have so much focus on what can we do to make them better built. Broadus, Carter's Store, Cosner's, so Cosner's, Hunters Ridge Office Park, those are actually under construction right now. Hunters Ridge South, Spotsy Technology Campus, those all have like site plans that are under review. And then Summit Crossing Tech Camp, Thornburg Industrial. So these were all put in by right development before we got it changed to special use permit being required. So we are gonna be limited to what we can and cannot influence, but we're gonna try. And then we,
Are those, how many of those are hyperscale?
all of them.
All of them are hyperscale? All of them.
So we have 10 additional data centers that could be coming. That includes Belvedere, which I'm gonna give a little bit more information about Belvedere. Commerce Gateway, which is currently in the rezoning process. Crossroads Tech Campus, which is ours. That is currently under the special use permit process, which I will cover both of those in more detail. Fredericksburg Digital. Massaponax Tech Campus, also is going through rezoning. Mattamead, Paramount, that's going through rezoning. Summit, Thornburg, and Thornburg 2, those are all rezoning. But they all of these, if the rezoning goes through, they will all require special use permits. So we will be able, if we can't stop them, we will be able to influence how they're built. So Crossroads, currently going through the SUP process. It is 2.2 million square feet and 633 acres of land. Part of that land cannot be developed on because there is a, like an archaeological, portion, and then there's also, what is it called? Wetlands, yes, wetlands, but there's a specific term and I can't remember it off the top of my head. It's gonna have 8 buildings, which initially, the initial application was for 14 buildings, so it has been reduced to 8 buildings. It is zoned as industrial 2, which means that it is possible for on-site generation, which would mean lots of diesel generators, possibly some gas turbines, those kinds of things. It will require, so when I reached out to Piedmont Environmental Group, they were able to do calculations for me and said that a site this size will require 330 to 660, is that megawatts? They will need 3 substations, and they're gonna require 132 to 264 backup diesel generators.
Just kind of a general question about this. One thing that makes no sense to me that I can't figure out is given all the land that's possibly in the county, why they keep proposing locating these things next to residential areas?
Because of where the power lines and the fiber cables.
The fiber cable is running up and down I-95, isn't it? The power line is going through rural areas. Why does it even?
It's also where our industrial zone land was. A lot of the further out land is agricultural zone.
Just goofy.
Yeah. We currently do not know who the end user will be. We don't know what company is gonna come in. They claim that it is proprietary information. And the projected county revenue from this site is approximately $40 million a year. One other thing to know is just that we had a technology zone incentive, which would have rebated their money back at 100% for the first 2 years, and then 50% for 3 years after that, and they could have applied for it again. However, that ordinance, the board meeting on Tuesday is supposed to be repealed. However, they have left it in there that it can be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So we still have to pay attention to it.
And to put that acreage into scope, Central Park, the shopping area in Stafford is 310 acres. So you're looking at a site, one site, twice that size.
Belvedere is currently in the pre-application process, yes.
Has anybody tried to submit FOIA requests to get information?
It's on the list. I have a whole that's my list. Those will go out on Monday.
Can I ask for clarification? FOIA, to whom, for what kind of information?
To the county, to the owners of whoever's buying this property?
Okay, and the reason I ask that is FOIA does not work for private enterprise. We can ask the county under a FOIA, and we're having good conversations with them. and they have been very open with talking about the codes and everything else like this. But a FOIA, I do not believe, unless the county stipulated that the developer provide information as part of their application package, an individual filing a FOIA request to a private company wouldn't go anywhere.
Even if they did, if they had information from the developer, it's possible that depending on how the Virginia laws are, that they wouldn't release all that information. Because I did FOIA review in Texas, so I've done the review of information for these requests before. It's not necessarily everything they have they release.
Right, thank you.
Can you go one slide back? And just, I was trying to figure it out from this and my eyes are too bad. Frame of reference though, like what is that north-south?
So this is Antietam Court and Carolina Court are here. Carlisle Court and Mindy Court are here. This says Jordan Drive, Lee Hill Park is here. Lee Hill Elementary. St. Jude's Church is right there. And Eagle Drive is here. Where the entrance is.
And the north-south is.
Benchmark is the little loop on the bottom right-hand side.
Oh, down here.
And there is a vertical line that you see going right there, and that's the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So their proposal is to build on both sides of the railroad tracks.
So right there, that's a projected map of where the data center would be located in that.
Right.
And
Yeah, this is kind of what the layout would look like.
What's the mutual goal for?
I think it's over here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not very clear.
that has been provided by the developer to the county. That's where we got that from. And it's not all the buildings at once, they'll stay,
Yeah,
they'll build
it'll be
2 buildings, and then they'll build 2 more buildings, and then so on.
what is the timeline?
So, actual construction, the absolute earliest it would start would be next year, probably closer to 2028. And with the first 2 buildings supposedly completed 2031, I think. And then every couple of years out, like, I think the final build out would be 2035.
That's what their permit proposal states.
So, like, this is going to be under construction for like 5 years. Yeah.
Are they gonna turn on as they complete them?
In theory, yes. So there is supposedly this crossroads is under batch 0, which to get power, which is one of the earliest batches to get power. However, in speaking with Piedmont, they told me that there's no way they'll get power by 2031. And so the concern with that, like I said, is that because this is industrial 2, does that mean they're gonna build on-site gas turbines to get power there because they can't get electrical power there?
I don't know if you guys are aware, because I'm sorry, I was late. On Carolina Court, there's what we thought was common area. And it goes extend out to the street, and that's where the walking trail starts. They own that land as well. So I heard that the HOA was working on getting it back for us. I don't know what's happened with it.
We're still working on it, ma'am. I'm part of the whole board in that neighborhood.
Okay,
We have to be very careful with it. We've got our lawyers involved. I'm actually wrote down to try and get an update on what's going on with it. I can provide it to anybody if you need it, but I've got it marked down and we'll put it in out that parcel of land that you're talking about.
Yeah, cause I met with the developers for the crossroads. They did say that we could get it back, that they would, give it over to us and do all the paperwork without having to go that far. So I don't know if that's something you wanna look into, because they want us to let them do it, period.
Yeah, it has to be litigated. We're not just gonna play this sidebar game like, oh, we'll just give it back to us. So what we're trying to do with our home, with Landmark is go back and see in our records, and this is very hard to understand right now, is if we've got paperwork that says, yes, we were maintaining that as a common area through our landscape companies, however many years ago. So that's ongoing right now.
Yeah, we're still maintaining, because they were there the other day mowing it.
Shenandoah was?
Yeah, whatever company we have, they were there the other day mowing it. So
Okay, I'll check that in, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I have, my kids live in Timberlake, which is right on the edge of the one that's currently being built. If you're not sure the damage the construction can do, just go straight through that stoplight and try to go down there. It's destroyed the roads, there's construction debris everywhere. And so if this is gonna go on for 5 years, I can't imagine.
The only answer I would give to you is closer to 10, not 5.
Yeah, I mean, 5 is generous.
Their initial projection was 27, finishing 45.
Yeah, no,
Have we
I'm
ever
just,
seen a construction project that actually finished on time?
right, I
So
just
it-
am
I would say
recommending,
that 10 years later.
I'm just,
Just for Crosswinds?
you know,
Yes,
I'm just recommending
yes.
that our community look at the problem. It's much more than just noise, environmental. Just go down that road.
I don't know if you can answer this, I live on Antietam Court, like right on the cul-de-sac, will we be able to see that? Like, are they gonna cut down all the trees in between there?
Well, they're required to leave trees there, and specific kinds of trees, but most of the trees they've recommended are deciduous trees. So there won't be any tree coverage in winter. So that is something that we are,
Can I get that
Yeah.
for just a second? There is something called a view shed analysis that is required of the developers. And what they're supposed to do is, from various vantage points around the perimeter of their site, they have developed. Did anybody here go to the June 4th Townhall meeting over at Cosmo Park? All those posters they had up around the room, each of those were kind of the view shed photos of what this would be. So they took, one of the views was from Mindy Court, and they had this beautiful view of identical 6-foot-tall trees. Immediately behind it is a bunch of identical 20-foot trees. Immediately behind it was identical 60-foot trees. And their analysis was, well, you can't see anything. They also did a site from a house right here next to the railroad tracks. Well, the railroad tracks are on a 20-foot-tall berm. And they said, you can't see us from there. Why do they pick a spot immediately the other side of the railroad tracks? That's obviously you won't see anything. But again, these are supposed to be 75-foot-tall buildings. If the trees are standing and everything's wonderful today, you may not be able to see anything. But their view shed points from here, 3 or 4 from around here, all showed you can barely see the top of their building. I don't believe a bit of it.
And they also took it from the front of the house. Like, they're standing in the driveway of the house as opposed to like the person's backyard looking at it, right?
They did the same thing in Lake Crossing, they went to the lowest part, and
Right.
they pictured there,
Yes.
and not the
Right.
higher elevation to the house as well.
Nor from your second floor bedroom window.
Yeah.
So we did bring that up to the county as well, that they need to redo that. So Belvedere, back to Belvedere. So it's in the pre-application process. It is going to be 7 million square feet and 161 acres. It is also zoned at industrial too, which means they could put in gas turbines to power it. It's currently at 28 buildings. It will require 1,050 to 2,100 megawatts, and it's gonna need 4 to 7 substations, and it will require between 420 to 840 backup diesel generators. Again, end user unknown. We are pushing for the closed loop water, or the county is pushing for the closed loop water plume because Crossroads taps out the wastewater availability for the county.
Cindy.
Yes.
Another question about the zoning, that's kind of fixated on how close these are to residential. Anybody thought about rezoning any of the agricultural land to industrial too, further out, maybe some farmer wants to make a bundle of his land? Or rezoning this parcel from industrial to residential, since it would be a good use of that land too? Has anybody thought about doing stuff like that, if that's possible?
about it.
Yeah.
My guess is they wanna be close to existing infrastructure that's already there, but
I
yeah.
bet there's some existing infrastructure that's not next to houses.
So yes, the county is pushing for that closed loop water cooling system, and it may require on-site power generation. So what can you do? You can email or call your planning commissioner, and your board of supervisor, representative about your concerns. You can email and call your state representatives to voice your concerns about the data centers, about the merger, about all of the Kraken line, the Valley Link line. I do have a sheet over there where all of the planning commissioners by district, their emails and telephone numbers are listed, and the same with the board of supervisors, so you can feel free to take one when you leave. They are also on our website if you need them. I would really, really encourage people to attend your planning commission meetings and your board of supervisor meetings. It's really important for them to know that citizens are concerned, that residents have issues with these developments. Yes.
I have a question. How accurate are the agendas they put out, so that you know what is going to be talked about? I don't wanna go listen to something about something that's.
They typically put out an agenda a week to a couple of days before the meeting. They can change. I know a couple of weeks ago, there was a meeting and Gateway, the Commerce Gateway was on the agenda, and then last minute the developer asked it to be pulled.
Well, I'm less concerned about it not being there than talking about it when I would have wanted to be.
Right.
That's-
I would say to check the day of the meeting, check that morning, and see if they've removed anything off of the agenda.
Are they allowed to do it on the fly?
They can, yeah.
I've been to a lot of them in this past year, and honestly, nobody shows up.
Yeah, no, but like, we went and there were 2 people. It was just me and Trelane there at the last planning commission.
People saying we were speaking, but you do get to go up and speak, so even if it's not on the agenda, you can get your opinion out
Correct.
there, you can say what you want to say about it. So even though it's not necessarily on their ad, you can say whatever you want, you don't even have to sign up, you can just show up that night and get there and talk and say, get out what you have to say. I think it's a 3-minute, 1 minute.
So how it kind of works, so like, it's at the Board of Supervisors meeting, the one that will occur on Tuesday of this coming week. There will be a consent agenda, and that you cannot speak on unless you're speaking specifically to an item on the consent agenda. So they will go through that process. Then they will go through the rest of the agenda, and there will be a space for public comments. And you can get up and speak about anything you want. It does not have to be anything that's on the agenda. Yes.
I'm less concerned about that than them doing something quick with nobody around. That's what I'm worried about, more than being able to speak.
And the other thing you have to keep an eye on, they sometimes will change the time of the meeting.
Correct.
At the last minute, and it'll go to 4 o'clock, and you don't know that they changed it, so you have to keep an eye on the website.
Yeah, I always recommend checking the morning of just to make sure.
And there is Cindy said there is a 4 p.m. meeting of the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday.
Yes.
There is also a 5 p.m. Planning Commission meeting on Wednesday.
It's at 6, yeah.
At 6 p.m.?
Yes, but I'll get there in just a second.
Okay, got it.
So yes, yes, sorry.
Just really quick to kind of add additional information, they do update their Facebook pretty regularly, even with their last minute changes. So I have my notifications on for that. Anytime it posts, I see it.
I'm not on Facebook. Is it a public Facebook?
It is.
So, question,
Yes.
so what's the best way to stay updated? Is it either website, or somebody's website, or Facebook?
So the county website
But the county website also
has the agenda on it,
Yeah.
right? They will, so normally when they send their post out on Facebook, it will have a link to the agenda for that meeting, and sometimes like a link to sign up to talk if you want to. So you can always go through that link, but you can always just go directly to the county's website and just click on the meeting and agendas. Yes.
So the fact that we've gotten to this point, with these massive centers beyond imagination, some of them already built, the county's known about this for years, they haven't said a thing, they haven't warned us, the motto with the county about almost everything they do is, they don't care. If we all show up, this stuff has been coming for decades. It came from Washington, the military's involved, they want it. Big business, it's not about cat pictures, that's insulting. This is about, people, if you start looking on YouTube, for instance, you'll get your little algorithm, you start researching, you get a lot of information, and some people who are very intelligent and believable, engineers and so forth, they're calling these things surveillance centers. That's the picture here. This is not about cat pictures, it's not about businesses getting better computer. We already have that. I have that on my laptop. This is something way worse. They don't care what we say. There's big, huge money involved in this. There's also fear involved. The military is saying, look, we can't let China get ahead of us on this. This thing says, China and us, we're the ones doing this. Europe is broke, they're not doing it. And this is something way bigger. We ought to find out, get somebody from Washington to tell us, either release data or just, get a Snowden type person to tell us what this is really about and wake people up. We're real small here, we're small. They consider us a bunch of boobs, and some of us are. I mean, half the voting people vote for idiots. We're not that smart. They're very smart, they have unlimited money, they know what they're doing for decades. They've been planning this thing. And they plan it up, they have talking points that they can give out to us. Oh, let's talk about data, let's talk about distances, how much noise. Get people talking about setbacks, all these minor things. The real issue is, what is this stuff for? Where did this come from? Out of the blue, all of a sudden we're fighting. I've been in computers for 50 years since they first started. I never heard about any of this. And here they are building these things, and we're not told. Remember when we had COVID, all of a sudden out of the blue, there's this global pandemic. Where in the world does this stuff come from? We're not told. And this is another one. This is bigger than I think anybody realizes. And we're splashing around in a little puddle of water, concerned about little things. They're going to push this stuff through whether we like it or not.
So we need to be safe.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we need to do it safely as well. So,
You might make a difference if we actually all show up.
well, there has been success in other counties where citizens are coming out, attending their board meetings, attending their planning commission, and calling, emailing. You have to hold your legislators accountable, yes.
Sometimes it doesn't even take a whole lot of people. You saw what happened in Stafford yesterday, 2 days ago. That was a small group of people who said, you're not gonna continue to build this data center and dig up a cemetery to do it. You're not gonna do it. Supervisor said,
And they actually had some.
they're right. We're not gonna do it. Stop.
And they really made it happen, and you're sure it's gonna
That's
stay
right.
happen. It's not, they're not gonna wait 6 months
They
and
have
then
to
come back
investigate
again.
it all, but do you know how long it takes to investigate
Yes.
an archaeological dig? A very long time. So,
Well, people have been watching what's going on in
to me,
DC,
that's what
they
we
lie
want
to
here,
us.
is
They
to
say they
delay
won't
this
do it,
as
and then they
long
wait a
as
month and then they do it.
Yeah.
Until
So
they
let
get
me just
tired.
finish about the, we're almost done. Let me finish about the board of supervisors. So, board of supervisors meeting is this Tuesday. They will not necessarily be discussing data centers at the board of supervisor meeting. However, there is a planning commission meeting on Wednesday at 6 p.m. They are discussing data centers as a whole, kind of what the vision is for the county moving forward. They also specifically requested a working session on Crossroads. So I really encourage everybody to show up at that meeting. You will be allowed to speak if you want to speak at that meeting. So that is Wednesday at 6 p.m.
But also, attending the board of supervisors is recommended. The more people that get up and voice their opinion, the more likely the board of supervisors is going to stand up and take notice.
Yes.
If we don't go, if it's an empty room, then as far as they're concerned, nobody cares.
Correct.
Right? We have to go.
Well, I have a question for that. Lori Hayes was there at that dog and pony show that the Crossroads people held. Isn't 400 or 500 angry people enough for her?
But we have other board of supervisors.
Right. Yeah,
We
we do.
need other districts as well, which is going to be a focus of ours, is going out into the other districts and getting them involved. most of these data centers are actually located in Berkeley, right?
Yes,
District.
Berkeley, some in Battlefield, by and large Lee, and Berkeley is they're taking the brunt of it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention, but Berkeley is a big deal.
Yeah, and we wanna make sure that they know that we're watching and we're paying attention so that more data centers that are gonna try and come in, that it's just a non-issue. Yeah.
Just to go along with numbers, we definitely want people to show up because a lot of the board of supervisors, we found in the fight that we're doing for Belvedere, they're up for re-election in 2027. So that is gonna hit them, like the numbers and showing that the people want them to vote in the way that like helps us. That's where the numbers show up. Like you don't even have to speak, just wearing the shirt, right? Showing that we're coming together as a community for all these data centers will speak louder than anything, I think, especially when they're up for re-election. Because I believe 3 of them that voted against the SUP are the ones that are up for re-election in 2027. So it's just, like, yeah, Lori is on the side that we are all agreeing with, but she's 1 vote in a matter of 7, and it was a very close vote for the SUP to go through.
And
So
if I
I
could
think
just
the
add a
numbers.
quick note on that, Lori told us in a conversation we had, it took 18 months on the board of supervisors to go from 2 votes for an SUP process to 3 votes for an SUP process to 4 votes for an SUP process, which was then a majority vote. That dialogue started back in 23, and it was finalized in February of 26 that they would go to an SUP process. So absolutely spot on. We gotta get to every one of the members of the board of supervisors.
We have to make them feel uncomfortable. We show up in a group, we have to bother them, make them feel uncomfortable, because if they're uncomfortable, then that gets them to reconsider what they're doing. You don't want it, as Cindy said, and I've said, speak up, show up, speak up.
If Dr. Fraser literally said, I don't know if you were at that meeting, you voted us here, this is our decision, I'm not gonna feel bad if you don't go. She flat out told us at the meeting, you're not gonna make me feel bad. You put me here, this is my decision, and that's it. She's a tough one, she doesn't care.
And by the way, let's keep in mind also, these, board of supervisors, each of them have multiple means of contacting them. I've emailed each and every one of them, and it just occurred to me last night, doing all this stuff, that I've not called. Several of them have Facebook. Several of them have their websites that have a point of contact information. Drew Mullins of Portland, you can go to his website and it has a contact me page where you can enter your information. So any place they go, anything they have to call them about that, text them about, or whatever point of contact you have, make sure that they're inundated with how much you don't want this.
Do you know how the planning commission people feel like Scott Phelps would be the district plan?
I know Scott Phelps is very concerned about the tax rate. I know that that's kind of the biggest thing that he's pointed out and spoken out against, is the fact that our tax rate, if we're gonna have these, why are we only charging them 25? So,
Shouldn't he be concerned about the fact that he's right across the street from this thing, about the
he should.
Yeah, he should.
I agree.
So Phelps was right next to us?
I have a couple of questions, bear with me. Someone mentioned about the impact of noise on pets. I'm concerned about the impact of noise on those on the autism spectrum, which I've been reading about. It has a significant impact on their abilities. So I just bring that up as a point of concern. The other concern is the fire department. Should one of these hyperscale data centers catch on fire, we have a wonderful dedicated fire department. No disrespect, I don't think that they would be able to handle it. We don't have the equipment to handle it. They've already said that they would have to let it burn. So my understanding is that potentially within the SUP or the proffers would be money toward getting equipment that would be.
But that doesn't help available.
I understand.
Drew Mullins does everything on the fire department and the access and everything else, so he would be the one to go to, because that's a big concern of his, at least in a meeting. He has a big thing with the fire department being able to get in there, so he's a good one to go to.
Two other questions. Don't they have to disclose at some point who is going to occupy this building? Because I understand that there's a 2024 National Defense Authorization that is data centers that are being used for government surveillance or whatever, cannot use parts from China. And I'm pretty confident that data centers use Chinese parts. So they've got to tell us what's going on at some point.
Well, that's one of our arguments, is that we shouldn't be approving data centers that we don't know who the end user is. Like, they should be voting no, unless that is being disclosed.
And my last point is Charles Kane, the lawyer representing the consumption.
Oh, yes.
I believe has professional and or personal relationships with some of our board of supervisors. Wouldn't they have to recuse themselves from any decision regarding this?
We're looking into it.
We're good.
It's one of the avenues that we're looking into. I know there are, I've heard that there are conflicts of interest for other board members. And yes, that is one avenue that we are exploring.
We do have to have actual proof.
Correct, yes. Yeah, I can't, yeah.
Hold on.
One more question, hold on, one more question.
How many employees does a data center have?
Depends on the size.
Yeah, I mean, it can vary, it really depends on the size of the data centers. I think it's 15 to 20 employees per like 25 megawatts.
So basically, it's not gonna be a big employer.
No.
Well, let's make sure, a tiny bit of data. The Crossroads SUP states 571 employees.
For construction?
Yeah, that's what.
And, no, that's operational, 571 employees, 8-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, running and managing the thing. That's what's in their proposal.
Although it does say, it may fluctuate, like there's a disclaimer in there as to the number that would
But
be
they've
required.
also projected, the primary access is off of Wheat Hill School Road, adjacent to St. Jude's Church. And they have in their proposal a 50% increase of traffic on Wheat Hill School Road. Once they hit operation, there's no data in their submission about during construction. So the traffic network can't handle this either for Crossroads.
Yeah, so to your point about the construction, the gas station, things like that, all the trucks trying to get through the job site. You can hear something about the land and lease property, with Memphis Borough.
Yeah.
Yeah, are they gonna use that for that to get the?
That's a question we've asked, and been told us we don't know, but I don't know how much time it is.
Okay. Somebody's good.
I just have a question, if you know, I can look it up as well, and I don't mean to get too far in the weeds on it, but so you said that the SUP has 571 people to employ it. Just for Crossroads, do we know, like, are there specifics that's coming from the community? Because at Nova, almost none of the jobs are to the community members.
Yeah.
They're outsourcing them, so it's
There is nothing, it just
Okay.
says 571 jobs, doesn't say where those are gonna come from.
And there's commercials that are saying that, yeah, it's bringing jobs to the area, and revenue.
Okay.
Question, but isn't this going to affect our property value and resale?
Yes.
So,
I think you did the reason 90% of us got it.
so the county says to us that they looked at, what, a George Mason
There's a
study?
George Mason study.
And it basically says it doesn't really, like, they're not seeing that it's affecting it, it kind of depends on where the house is located, those kinds of things. And we haven't come across anything specific where someone is definitively able to tell us that it is going to affect property values. I personally think it just makes sense that yes, it's going to.
Yeah.
Especially for those homes that are so close.
But there's two pieces, Cindy. She's spot on. The George Mason study looked at Northern Virginia and property values in the vicinity of the data centers. Predominantly, the results of that study were everything stayed level or even went up. Not during construction. There are other reports that in the vicinity of data centers during a construction period, resale values could drop from 5 to 15% during the construction period. And so one of the questions is, I'm getting old. If I need to move to a single-story house someplace within the next 5 or 6 years, do I want to lose 15% of the value of my house for resale? And we actually had a fun one-liner when we talked to, I gave a couple of points to the board of supervisors and said, how about if you have that, I can document the value of my house today. And if I go to sell and I have to sell it for less, have this builder reimburse me the difference.
But isn't that comparing apples and oranges?
And that was actually one of our points, we are not allowed to catch it,
Yeah,
correct?
right.
Yes, that was our point when they gave us the study.
Very important point. I haven't looked just yet at the, planning commission, however, to my knowledge, Lori is the only one who's gonna be living anywhere near one of these projects. All right, so that's just something to keep in mind. The majority of people who are involved in this decision are gonna be living, the ones I've looked at, most of them live somewhere near around the courthouse, which is nowhere near one of these. So, none of them are gonna have to deal with the aftermath of this. Just keep that in mind.
Man in the back, we had Jerome up a little bit ago. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, how are they going to rehome the wildlife? I already have coyotes and foxes that are living there. They were planning on doing it a lot.
There was no mention of that. I went through that comprehensive plan and that you should now, that's a concern of mine as well, in addition to everything that we said here, and there's nothing in their plans to do that.
The sub for Crossroads says that there will be no
Negative
negative impact.
on the environment or on the health of anyone living in the vicinity.
Trust the animals are there.
Special use permit, is that, negate them having to do any type of environmental action?
No, they have to do the study. Yeah, they have, so when, it's in process of being done. So that has to actually, it's part of the process of a special use permit. They have to go through a technical review process, and so it goes to the police department, it goes to the fire department, it goes to the environmental group. So they have to look at all of those things and submit that back to the planning commission.
Can I just say something about the special use permit really quick? So, what a special use permit is it's something developed between the county and the developer, and then once it's agreed upon, it becomes law for that particular property. So, the reason the special use permit is so important is because once we get things in it, it becomes law for them, for that property.
But who's going to police them?
So that is another very big concern. So, we don't have a zoning group that goes out actively looking for violations. They have to be called in. And once they receive a violation, like someone calls and complains about it, then they'll go out and they'll look at it. And I believe in the meeting, so they can, issue them a violation. Sometimes there's a fine involved, and then if they continue to violate it, then they can get the court system involved, they can get an injunction put in place, but there's no real teeth behind any of this, right?
That's the problem.
That's the problem, and that's something else that we're trying to figure out how can we
We're
make
trying
that
to
better.
get teeth written into this, because without it,
It
Right.
almost seems like they need to create
suspicion of data center regulators to go out more the county, protecting the interests of the county and police them.
Yes, we have made the notes in our dialogue and, what we've been talking with the board supervisors. Data centers are a big thing. There isn't anything in the county code specifically about administration, environmental, enforcement, penalties. There are generic penalties. The sound piece was a very interesting one. The only thing about enforcement for a noise violation is you call the sheriff. The sheriff will come out with his noise meter, and if you violate it, they may issue you a $250 fine.
And
That doesn't
what they're
work.
used to looking for is things like people having loud parties.
Right.
That's not it.
The sheriff is not necessarily gonna be the one that says, this data center, 50 times the size of this building, is operating 37 decibels over what's authorized. Well, we did have a funny one-liner. I was in a bar on the 4th of July, and I just grabbed my phone out and checked, and it was 89 decibels. So we've got the solution. Build data centers in the bottom, in the basement of bars. Nobody would notice.
I was just curious about this developer, like I mentioned before the meeting, I didn't get much out of it. Does this developer have a lot of data center experience? Have they built them before?
You talk about RCK?
Yeah, whoever has it.
I did a little research on this. They have a podcast. I'm definitely against this, but their viewpoint is interesting, in that they don't really get us, because we're here and we're living in it. So, they are up north in McLean, in Tyson's Corner area. They're new to that, but each data center, each hyperscale one has a different developer and a different property manager. I think Kettler is the property manager for, Crossroads, but, RCK LLC, they just applied for an LLC, I think it was in February, right before they met with the county.
Yeah, but also some of these developers and some of the companies that will be, occupying these buildings, like Amazon, for example, they're doing their own campaign, television and radio campaign, to try to demonstrate to people to get communities on board with them building these data centers. Like they're not gonna harm the community, there's a lovely family that, that lives within X amount of feet, so they will then to out of the soccer field, yeah, I mean, they're trying to sway
But that's the point, right? They wouldn't be making those commercials if what we're doing didn't matter. It matters, it matters showing up.
Right, no, and also these fines, we were saying earlier, I mean, what is a $250 a day fine to Amazon for sound? I mean, this is just chump change to them. So, what are the fees gonna look like?
By the way, 70%, most recent poll as of last month, are Americans are against data centers. Okay, you are the majority. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Anybody on the board is telling you, oh, I don't care, you're not gonna make me feel bad. If you get loud enough, they will feel bad, because I have looked at their social media. These folks want nothing more than get reelected. It is their favorite thing. So if you are loud enough, if you are, I'm not saying be aggressive, but if you are constantly in their face, respectfully, but if they cannot sleep, like, because people who complain about data centers are just as loud as the data centers themselves, you will see them change their story.
Just to add on to what you said earlier about none of them living near the Lori Hay.
Except Lori, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I happened to run into Meg Chomsky, who's retired from the Board of Supervisors and Stafford, was able to have a little conversation, and she was recommending
staffers take pictures, because a lot of these board members here haven't even seen with their own eyes how massive they are. And one of her pieces of advice was a picture is louder than 1,000 words, or whatever that quote is. But she was saying, go take pictures, show them, let them see, and also, and I know others have mentioned, before this, another meeting I was at, that facts are what's really gonna change their mind. Like, motions are good, but it's facts, and just presented with facts, and really, and she was emphasizing rules. She was like, really so strong on the rules facts. So those are kind of her big things to say, a lot of them just not even see them.
I was impressed by how little, when we had our own meeting with one member of the board with Lori, but also a member of the planning commission. I was impressed with how little they knew about so much of these projects.
Yeah.
I really think that a lot of, not just us, but a lot of communities across the country, they're hitting, you kind of said it sort of in a way, sir, but I don't know if I would call us yokels, but definitely our commissions were not equipped for what the implications of these are, nor are they ready for the public backlash. I really was impressed with how much backlash there was in that meeting we went to. And a good example is many of you went to the middle school science meeting, the things that we all went to. They thought that was a great idea. They thought that was awesome. And all the backpedaling afterwards about what a disaster it was shows we can make progress.
I just want to double click on something like, I know we're talking about data centers and we don't want and things like that, but the reality is data centers are a necessary evil, because we use AI, we use the internet, we have to have something powerful with technology. That's why we have to have it. I think the real question is, where do we put it, right? And so, I know that there's talk about, the student here said something about the bigger scope. Absolutely. I think Elon Musk has said something about putting in space, space action. Put them on a rocket, put them in the air, let the sun power them, and let the, atmosphere cool them. I mean, that may be the next frontier. I don't know if the developers have thought about that, but
So that's one of the things that we're looking into as well. We know that there are up and coming technologies that wouldn't require these massive buildings and complexes, and trying to gather that information and present it to the board as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that's no idea. I mean, it's just because we kind of have, don't know.
And what happens to the buildings after, once the technology is obsolete, then what?
Exactly.
So I will say, it's kind of this weird position where, let's just say, data center technology is disappearing. You still have a bunch of developers who bought a bunch of land and go industrial cities. They're gonna build something. They're gonna build something. And right now, in some weird way, data centers are controllable while they build a paper plant or, slaughterhouse or whatever. They do whatever they want because it's not a data center. Right. So we're in this weird position of, do you want more data centers? Not really. But it could be also something that is worse.
And then you have those 2 reasons, right?
Yeah. So we're all in tough spots.
Also, keep in mind, Virginia, if it was a country, would lead the world in data centers.
Why?
We have more than China.
That's my question.
So we have enough. Well, because we're down the road from Washington and because we're all fiber optic.
But New York City, Chicago, there's other big cities.
All the lobbyists are up the block. That's really the answer. It's because the people who are deciding are right up the road from us, and they are the ones with all the money, and we also have a lot of fiber optic cable that they can munch on. But I do want to reiterate, all this nonsense about this need for intelligence, like our governor stated, okay, Virginia has more data centers than China. We're good. If you're worried about, whatever you're worried about getting enough data centers, we are there. All the rest of this is about just gathering more data and controlling more land. And I'll tell you this, and when elites call something a conspiracy theory, I call it a job, because when you pay somebody to do something, that's a job, okay? That's what regular people call a job. Now, When our property values go down, who do you think is gonna buy those houses at a dollar? Okay, it's gonna be the same people who are, either themselves